You're walking into that room right now. You push open the door and the person waiting inside stands up to shake your hand. Their tone is gentle. Their eyes are warm. The desk's surface is clean, sterile, neutral. The fluorescent light is adjusted to put you at ease because these details are no accident. The person across from you isn't your boss. It isn't your manager. The people who've kept you up at night for months aren't in this room. And right at that moment, a weight lifts off your shoulders. You handed in your resignation 2 weeks ago. The finish line is right in front of you. Your laptop is on its way back. Your card is about to be deactivated. You have nothing left to lose and no one to fear. That feeling, that moment when you take a deep breath and finally feel you can speak, it is precisely that moment when the fuse of the most expensive trap of your career is lit. My name is Stefan, and in the next few minutes, I'll prove this to you. Every moment of relief you feel in that room, every honest word you speak, every sincere answer you give, it all becomes a record that will haunt you for years, and you'll never see that record. But at one of the most critical turning points in your career, a few lines written by someone smiling in that room will decide your fate, silently, without your consent, and you'll never understand why. Why do you feel so at ease during the exit interview? Because the room was specifically designed to evoke exactly that feeling. A neutral conference room. Not formal, not cold, not stifling. The person across from you is the company's HR representative, but your brain processes them differently. A neutral observer, perhaps even a silent ally, or someone who will finally understand you. Plus, your boss will be in the office on Monday morning, but you won't be there. That feeling is a sense of freedom. So what happens to those words that come out of your mouth at the very peak of that sense of freedom? They're recorded as the final entry in your career file. No one told you that, because if they had, they could never have written the note that the pen behind that smile was writing. I'm going to tell you the truth now because you need to hear this. An exit interview is not a feedback session. They call it feedback because that word gets you talking. But when you look at the structural reality, it's the final official record added to your employee file, a documentation process. And documentation outlives the person who created it. After you walk out that door, the HR representative returns to their desk, opens their notebook, organizes their notes, and enters a structured summary into the company's HR information system. This summary doesn't end up in a desk drawer. It goes into the same system, the one containing your start date, salary history, performance reviews, and everything that defines you within that company. And this record is searchable, a structured data point embedded deep within the corporate memory, managed by retention policies that span years, sometimes decades. This is now how that company remembers you. I know what you're thinking. My former employer has strict rules about what they can say during a reference check. Their legal department won't allow it. You're right. In almost all large corporate structures, the official policy is the same. Start date, job title, and whether they'd hire you again. 3 lines. That's it. On paper. But now I'm going to tell you what actually happens behind the scenes. When a reference check comes in, the person on the other end opens a full file. They see the dates. They see the title. They see the rehire status, and at the very bottom of the file, there's a note from your exit interview. If that note says, left for a better career opportunity, left on good terms, that note becomes irrelevant. It's the invisible equivalent of a clean credit report. But if that note says, express concerns about leadership effectiveness, voiced dissatisfaction with promotion processes, raised cultural issues, those few lines completely change the tone of the phone call. And this is where a mechanism most people don't notice comes into play. The HR representative on the phone is a human being. They've read the file. Even if they're repeating the approved lines, the way they say them is different now. There's a slight pause. There's a cautious tone. The word choice is a bit more formal, a bit more cautious. Experienced hiring managers pick up on these signals like radar. You can't blame them. It's an instinctive professional skill. You have to blame the system. That recruiter is evaluating you against 8 in 10, maybe 15 other candidates, and the decision to eliminate someone is rarely about who's the best. It's about who carries the least perceived risk. If 10 candidates are similar, even the slightest doubt becomes the deciding factor. You won't receive a rejection email saying your former employer flagged you. The recruiter will thank you and move on. The position will go to someone else, and you'll never know why. You'll wonder for years, did your interview answers go wrong? Was your salary expectation too high? Was the timing off? You'll never get back those 40 minutes you spent in that fluorescent lit conference room. Why do people fall into this trap time and time again? Because they completely misread the situation in that room. They assume the HR representative is an impartial person. They think they finally found a platform to voice what they've been holding inside for months. They feel as though the manager they've never been able to speak to isn't there, there's no political pressure, they don't have to come to work tomorrow, and they have a microphone in their hands. But that microphone isn't focused on the company's problems, it's focused on you. HR isn't your friend. HR isn't the company's conscience. HR is a function designed to manage the organization's human resources risk. And the day you leave, you become a risk vector. You could file a lawsuit. You can make a public statement. You could be the third person this quarter to point the finger at the same manager, which means documenting a problem the company no longer wants to acknowledge. That's the conversation actually taking place on the other side of the table. Warm language, direct eye contact, understanding nods. These are part of the interview technique, stage design, and the stage is set very well. Now, fast forward and go to a place most people don't see. 3 years have passed. You've moved on. You have a new and great job. You feel like that old department has long since closed. A fantastic position opens up. The hiring manager calls your former company to verify your background. The system opens. The notes are still there. They haven't aged a day. Not a single line has been deleted. And this time, the companies might have merged. The startup might have been acquired. HR systems might have been quietly migrated. That emotionally written exit interview note could be sitting in the archives of a Fortune 500 parent company years later. Files are being reindexed, systems are being integrated, and you'll never be notified. But that note will travel. You'll never know where it ends up. And there's also a scenario no one could have imagined. What if you want to go back? What if that bad manager leaves? What if the team you truly loved opens a senior position and you're now the perfect fit? You apply. The internal recruiter pulls up your file before even picking up the phone. They read your exit interview notes. They see that you describe the culture as broken and the leadership as ineffective. Even if everything has changed, that record hasn't. You're losing the job because of words you spoke years ago on a Friday afternoon at a company you already knew. Now let's talk about what you really need to do. The first rule is brevity. Brevity is your strongest ally in that room. The less you say, the less there is to summarize. You don't owe them any insights. You don't have to offer suggestions for improvement. You don't have to lay your honesty on the table. Your professional obligations ended the day you handed in your resignation. What remains is a performance, and your role is to play the calm, grateful, and clean-cut departing employee. Rule number 2, deliberate ambiguity. When they ask why you're leaving, give a statement that's impossible to misinterpret. Something like, the new position provides a strong fit for the next step. It's intentionally boring. It boils down to left for career development. And that's the cleanest possible note. Rule number 3, deflect the issue gracefully. If they press you for specifics about your manager or interpersonal dynamics, use vague language. I had strong relationships with the people on the team. Vague. I'm sure leadership is aware of the areas for improvement. Vague. No confirmation, no denial, just a neutral stance. The fourth rule, and this one is more critical than the others, is never to attach a name to a complaint. The moment you link a person's name to a criticism, you've created a documented allegation. Whether it's investigated or not, the connection exists. That record is a link that could resurface in background checks, internal investigations, or future processes you'll never be told about. Rule 5, treat every document handed to you as if it were a contract, waivers, non-defamation clauses, acknowledgments that there are no pending claims. Read every line. If something feels off, take the document, consult a qualified professional, and bring it back the next day. You are under no obligation to sign anything in that room. If you truly want to help those you're leaving behind, help them outside that room. Have coffee with the colleague you trust most and tell them the truth. Write a thoughtful, anonymous review on career platforms where real candidates will see it. Send a private message to someone you care about. Real change happens not in front of an HR professional with an open notebook, but through these channels. Smart professionals approach this moment not as a final confession, but as a final performance. They speak warmly. They keep their language clean. They deliberately make their remarks forgettable. When they walk out of that room, they know exactly what was written because they chose it themselves. The best exit interview produces almost no usable content. You smile. You thank them for the past years. You offer best wishes to the team. And you leave behind a record that says, there's nothing to see here. That's the win. 99% of your career path is a straight road you zip down. But there are crossroads where who's behind the wheel makes all the difference. This is one of those crossroads. And know this. The relief you'll feel walking into that room is real, That warmth is real. That sense of freedom is real. Yet the person who speaks the least at the peak of those emotions is the one who leaves that room the freest.